Hello and welcome back to the Couple of Pints podcast. This week we're at Albert Park Racetrack here in Melbourne, and this episode is all about Australia. As always, follow us on Instagram, TikTok and Spotify, and give us a subscribe on YouTube. Let's get into the episode and have a couple of pints. George, good to see you.
Good to see you again. Cheers.
We're on the Coronas.
I was going to say a couple of pints, but what, we got a couple of
bottles of Corona each.
Yeah. We got over a pint in total, so
so I think we've learnt our lesson from Qatar, where we had bottles of Corona, and I was very much told that's not a couple of pints, Nick. So yeah, we're back on it. Here to talk about Australia today. We're currently in Orlando in Florida again. So obviously last couple of weeks we've been in Las Vegas, and now we're over in Orlando. It's a bit of a different setting, but very much here to talk about Australia. Again, time's just got away from us on this trip, it really has. Sydney, Australia was where we entered from the Philippines, so picking up from last week, and yeah, it was pretty seamless to get into Australia.
Well, you say seamless. I think we've got to start. You got to go maybe a little bit just before that.
Yeah,
we're looking at the flight, because I'd say the flight potentially not as so seamless. Yeah, it was like it was a long haul flight. What was it, like 10? How long was it?
8 or 9 hours.
Like that.
It was effectively like flying from Orlando back to England.
Yeah,
it was a long haul flight.
It was a long haul flight, but like a short haul plane.
It was actually, that's a good point. It was a short haul plane. The name of the airline, balls to it, I'll mention them. Cebu Pacific was the airline, and it was basically like flying Ryanair long haul. That's the sort of
8 hours
feeling I had with it.
Very small seats, not built for taller, bigger guys like us, for sure.
Well, we had the exit row, and we were still struggling. I mean, the best of it was, so we got to the airport in Manila. Obviously, we had the fiasco with the food, which we talked about. And then when we got on the plane, boarded the plane, they just said no water.
Oh yeah, we had to pay for water.
So they threw out all of the water in our bags. And
oh yeah, we weren't allowed to bring water onto the plane. And then when you're on the plane, you then had to buy water.
Yeah,
I remember.
So we had that issue where you give away all your water and you get on the plane thinking, they'll give us some water. Like there's no doubts about it. They'll give us some water.
Sure,
not a problem.
8 hour flight, you'd like some.
And I remember about 5 or 6 hours in thinking to myself, we are not getting given water. And this woman comes down the aisle with a trolley. The sort of the cabin crew come down with a trolley, and she was like, "Do you want to buy some water?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do, yeah," because I'm parched, to be honest, mate. I think it was like 4 or 5 Australian dollars for a bottle of water, and it was like a 250 milliliter bottle, and it was like, I still, to this moment, right, it is the most expensive bottle of water I've ever had. I bought 2 of them because I was like, well, I need some hydration here. That was pretty horrific, I thought.
I couldn't remember how, like, what it cost or whatever, but luckily I was slept for most of the flight, so in terms of what we're talking about, it wasn't the most space on there, we didn't have any drinks on there. I'm very different to you, whereas planes, I'm out, can sleep, the whole thing. So I watched
Captain Phillips, the great film by Tom Hanks, if you get the chance. But yeah, so we arrived in Sydney. I don't know what your perception was, but when I get into Sydney, like my mindset with Australia, and I don't know why it is. I think I've seen too much Banged Up Abroad and Border Force and all them like sorts of things where people go into Australia, and for some reason there's that many TV shows about it, where people land at the border there and get dragged aside, and they get like all of their stuff like hounded out. It's there, everything's on the table, and for one reason or another, just go, "Yeah, mate, you're not coming in."
Yeah,
and I was like, I reckon it's going to be a nightmare to get into Australia. It was pretty easy.
Yeah, it was fine. Yeah, we had no problems, did we? So.
No stamping the passport. Very much
that's annoying.
An automated system where we had to use the kiosk to print off a little slip.
They didn't tell you that until you got to the thing. That was the thing. I was like, please go back to use a kiosk. We were like, look, all the kiosks everyone's walked past. So it was just on the side. It's like a fast way to do it. You go, we'll just go through, get to the thing. So you can't come through, actually. You need to go to the kiosk. There was no sign for that before.
No, there was none of that.
So we went back all the way around to get to the kiosk, yes. But It's quite quick and easy.
Yeah, and it was straightforward. Got through absolutely fine. There was in fact, actually, no, there was when we got to the border force area, the customs area. There was one guy who was making the decisions. He was like line 8.
Oh yeah,
line 8.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
line 4.
Yeah.
and people going to lane 4 were people that he thought looked a bit seedy.
Yeah, it was like, well, we want to have a look at this bag, but yeah,
literally just like one guy. Got into Sydney Airport, had a McDonald's, a Macca's as they call it.
It was, yeah.
I'll be honest, to this moment that still winds me up. Like, why would you? I mean, it's already like an easy word to say McDonald's, but if you're going to shorten it, everyone around the world shortens it to Macca's.
Yeah.
Or Mackie D's.
Yeah, that's American and Mackie D's.
Like Macca's.
Yeah, and I wasn't a fan of that.
I thought Steve McManaman had took over Australia's McDonald's. Talking of which, Burger King in Australia's a little bit suspect as well. It's because we were walking down the street in Sydney, and I was like, all that branding on that building says like Burger King, but the name is Hungry Jack's.
Yeah, we were like, surely that's like
that's copyright infringement.
There was literally everything we looked exactly the same.
Selling Whoppers and all sorts. I was like, this can't be right.
Obviously, did a little bit of research, and it is.
Yeah, the guy that franchised Burger King originally in Australia, his name was Jack. Someone had already set up a company called Burger King in Australia, so he had to choose another name, which I think is a nice story. The fact that 55 years on it's still called Hungry Jack's and confusing English tourists. We got the public transport as well. That was pretty decent, I thought, from the airport into Sydney, although one thing that I wouldn't have wound me up, but one thing that I didn't get on the public transport was the fact that they use, so like in London on the public transport you have stop here for Westminster Palace.
I knew the impression was coming as well,
mate. We all know how it sounds. Like this is Euston Station. Stop here for National Rail Services. It's always like quite easy to understand English.
Yes.
In Australia, they sort of use bits of English that no one else uses, such as a light here for Barangaroo.
Yeah,
I mean, we didn't go to Barangaroo. I'm not sure what Barangaroo is. I'm guessing it's something to do with kangaroos. I'm told
it's just a place.
It's a business district.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, whoever's named Barangaroo, I mean, they deserve like a lot of beer. But a light here, that confused me the first like 3 or 4. I was like, a light here? What? Lights? But again, pretty straightforward to understand. I think the first thing we did was went and saw the Opera House and the bridge.
Yes, yeah, I mean, landed in Sydney. What else
is there to do in Sydney?
Straight to the Opera House. It was a nice day as well, wasn't it? So we went out there, walked out, had a look at the Opera House, had a look at the Sydney Bridge, and I mean, when you've had a look at them, then that's about it, isn't it? Really, there's not.
It's a bridge, and it's a building where like contemporary arts, comedy, and music.
It's not like the most amazing thing you'll ever see in terms of like structurally. Like, oh my god, this is incredible! Like some things you'd see, but like it's just like it's the biggest tourist attraction. Like you got to go see it.
Sydney Opera, Sydney Harbour. I mean, I think Sydney Opera is pretty cool. Like,
it's cool. I mean, it's more iconic than it is like going to be like, oh my god, I've just, like where we've been in the Philippines and stuff like that. You look at it and go, wow,
it's a man-made. It's a man-made structure.
It's just like it's very iconic. We've seen it. It's like that kind of thing. Like if you go to see Big Ben or something like that in the UK, it's not.
Yeah, no. It's. I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, the thing is, you get your photo with it, and like
there we go. Yeah,
that's about it. That's pretty much it. We looked, and one thing that shows that my phone has been listening to me for the last 6 months is that every time I go on social media, I get the Sydney Bridge walk.
Oh yeah, you can walk across it.
Yeah. So Sydney Harbour Bridge does a walk across where you harness up and you walk to the very top of the bridge. Like I say, walk to, you climb up.
Yeah.
And it was like, I was like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. Our travel insurance does cover it as well.
Yeah, it said
by sheer coincidence. And I think we thought, oh, you know what, we might give that a go. I think we looked on the website for about 3 minutes before I decided that is not within traveller budget. It was like 190 Australian dollars.
I think it might have been even more than that.
That was the cheap one.
Okay, yeah.
But like the most expensive, I think for the days we were there, it was like $350, $400.
So I remember it being like over 150 quid in the UK.
Yeah, I wasn't justifying that because, again, like you say, although it's iconic, I mean, yeah, Prince Harry's done it, Prince William's done it, all of these like random people that they've got a celebrity.
Random people, yeah.
They're the random, like the random names on the website. They've got like Prince Harry, Tom Hanks, and like they're just like random names that have name dropped to try and get you to buy tickets to go up the bridge. But you get up the bridge, you take a photo of yourself up the bridge, and that's about it.
Yeah.
There's not a lot. There's not a lot else to it. So yeah, we had a beer and some food overlooking the bridge and the Opera House. That was pretty cool. Planning a bit more of this trip, and then we sort of went to the local bar, which was in the hostel.
Yes.
So we stayed in a hostel, a 10 bedroom.
It was 10 person.
10
bedroom. 10 bedroom. Yeah. Both got stuck on the top bunks. On this one. Normally it's been a case of we go like normally we'd be paired in a bunk. If we're staying in a hostel and we normally be paired in a bunk, it'd be one on the top, one on the bottom, and we just take turns like switch around over it. So this one we get in the room, 2 beds left, both top bunks. So we're like, well, there we go then. There's our 2 sorted. So. Yeah,
literally.
And again, expected to go in, meet loads of different travellers. Obviously, over half the room were all English, so that was a good start. So,
I think I walked in and I was like, "Where are you from, mate?" Thinking, please, something other than English. Brighton, mate.
Yeah.
God, here we go. So, evening, Charlie. I hope you're listening. And then we sort of, to be fair, we had a good little group in the room.
Yeah, it was,
although it was English, it was a very good little group.
Yeah, it was
we all sort of went out. We had a French guy called Corto. He was with us as well. It seems there's like a lot of travellers that are sort of, they're either our age, like sort of mid to late 20s, or they're literally just left school. In Australia, and there's no in between. There's no.
I see in Australia it was it's like that. I'd say for sure.
But yes, so we did a bit of exploring. We went to the bar there. That was pretty cool.
Exploring,
exploring bars mainly.
The local beers,
The hostel had its own bar attached to the underground bar. You got stamped on your wrist, and the same bouncer that stamped you on the wrist the following night then checked your ID again, even though you've still got the stamp visible from the night before, because it takes 4 days to wash off. They've got a real stringent ID law.
It is,
They're very strict on alcohol. I thought, it's quite expensive booze.
Yes, it was,
and even just having a couple of quiet pints was expensive, but they're really stringent on who can have it, when, and whatever. We'll come on to why. That's the what. We'll come on to the why very shortly. Something that we tried for the first time in Sydney and became a staple of the trip was Tim Tams.
Tim Tams,
And anyone that's ever been to Australia, I'm absolutely certain will know what we're on about when we talk about Tim Tams. What are Tim Tams, George?
I would always say they're very much like a penguin to me. I would say very much like a penguin, built like a penguin, taste quite like a penguin, but maybe a little bit nicer than a penguin. I'd give them that.
It's like a penguin, but I don't think there's that much difference between a penguin bar, which for anyone that's not a UK listener, a penguin bar is like a Tim Tam. If you don't know what a Tim Tam is, it's basically a chocolate biscuit. So it's like a penguin, but it's not individually wrapped.
Yeah, I was literally about to say this. As a penguin in the UK, you would expect to open a pack, you'd have one, because they're all individually wrapped, you'd take out, you'd have one.
No one's buying a pack of penguins and eating 6.
No. Whereas some people we know buy a pack of Tim Tams.
I did 5 in a day once. And I felt pretty awful about it.
Tim Tams for breakfast most of the time. You go, well, they're open, they're there.
You wouldn't do it. You would never buy a pack of penguins and go, I'll have 5 or 6 of them for breakfast. Do you know what I mean? But for some reason, Australia's just gone, you can have as many of these as you want. And they came in different flavours. You had double chocolate, original, white chocolate, caramel.
We had a caramel, like a brownie one.
Brownie one. It was pretty incredible.
Collection,
So much so, the Tim Tams actually lasted us until Las Vegas.
Yeah, you bought a few to bring with you.
I made sure that we left Melbourne with a lot of Tim Tams in the bag. So going back to the bar in the hostel, we went there because it was cheap beers. There was
downstairs.
Yeah, it was downstairs, and there was a regular DJ who. He was like a DJ, but he was like a DJ that had already got a set pre-recorded, or he was using YouTube from someone else's DJ set, because he was stood there. He had headphones on that were for show, and he was like, everything was changing whilst he was stood there going like this, and you just like, I remember pointing out to you, I was like, George, something's not right about this DJ.
Coupled with the annoying fact that he was there like every night in that hostel, and he played the same music every night as well.
Yeah,
like, right, we've heard this one. Pretty sure after this one he did this song next last
It's
night.
Avicii next. It's Avicii next.
And it's on. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, yeah. So,
but even so, it was good company. We met some really good people.
Good fun, yeah.
And there was the cowboy night.
Yes,
the rodeo night. So there was a mechanical bull in the corner of the bar. There was free cowboy hats as you walked in, and some people who had a few beers decided it was a good idea to jump on the mechanical bull and ripped their trousers, George.
Yeah, I feel like so the rest of the room went on. So what? A few of us in the room went on the ball.
Yeah.
Set a decent time. What, Joe went on, didn't he? Rebecca went on.
Yeah.
Angelina went on. Set decent. They were all around the same. They were like 24, 25 seconds ish. And I was like. Yeah. I was like, nah, I'm not really that bothered. And then they were like, come on, you gotta do it. And I was like, oh, go on, I'll have a go. Jumped on, and that was where the problem was. It was the immediate jump on.
It was the way you mounted this book.
So I was wearing cargos as well, so they're not tight, nothing like that. They're cargos on the ball, like jumped on, split straight away, and I was like, well, no one can tell here, like I'm good here.
No one knew at that point.
I'm sat down, I'm on the ball, that's fine. Rode the ball. Luckily, it wasn't. It would have been all nothing be worth it if it lasted 4 or 5 seconds or whatever. Luckily, set one of the highest times of the evening. We'll take that. What was it, like 45 seconds, something like that. Set the time.
It was a good record. I mean, and then if I split my trousers, I'd have probably been holding on for dear life as well.
Yeah, true. And then came off and went, shit, yeah, this is a problem now. So luckily, it was the bar in the place we were staying, so I could hop upstairs, get changed then, rather than have to move on for the rest of the night without it. But
I think that's the saving grace for you. If that was like anywhere else,
out in town, it's a long walk.
Yeah, it's I mean, that is truly the walk of shame. Sort of trying to hide the fact that you've got like a huge split. I mean, it was noticeable. It was very noticeable. To the point where I think you got off the ball, walked over to me. I was like, "What have you done?"
What's happening?
So that was pretty cool. It was quite weird. So going back to what we were saying about the people that were like there, like travellers and whatever. I was with Charlie, who was in our room. I was having a chat with Charlie, and this girl comes over. She's talking to Charlie. She turns to me and goes, "Why is there a 45? Sorry, why are you in a hostel bar? You look like 40." And I was like, "You look 12." Like, and I couldn't get my head around it because there was a bloke in there, and I'm not sure if you were there this night. There was a bloke in there, and I'm not even joking. He was 75. He was wearing his best jumper, like his granddad shirt, and like I was just stood there like, she's not having a go at him.
Yeah.
For the record, I'm not 45 or 40, not even close to that, not even in my 30s yet, so that was quite a strange scenario.
You made the mistake of telling the rest of us, and they didn't.
I found it funny. I'm telling the world on a podcast because I found it quite funny, to be honest. I was like, a 12-year-old's just had a go at me, really. She wasn't 12 either, obviously. That would also be she clearly must have had ID because she had a stamp on her arm, or 6. She must have been there for 6 days. So we then sort of planned a proper night out as well in Sydney. I've got loads of stories
I say we planned. It was more like the rest of the room were like, well, there was like a couple in the room.
I think we got back and we got back from a day out doing something. I think we went to Bondi Beach actually. So I mean, let's cover that briefly.
Okay, yeah, we'll do this,
Bondi Beach. We went over to, obviously. That is one of the most famous surfers beaches in the world. One of the most famous beaches in the world. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, it was cool, and it was full of surfers, to be fair.
Technically winter in Australia, or coming up to winter, and it was like 23 degrees Celsius.
Nice,
still nice.
Plenty of surfers there. We watched that for a bit, and there were some very good surfers there as well, so it was quite entertaining to watch that for a bit, chill out.
I made a mistake of recording a video of the waves coming in and crashing against the rocks and the side of the beach, and got absolutely drenched head to toe. That was That was pretty
funny,
depressing.
Funny.
I mean, it's probably
perspective.
Yeah, it's 1-1. When you rip your trousers, I got soaked. That's fair. That's probably karma. There was like a surfer's. What was he? It was like a surfer statue, which looked like Liam Gallagher as well. It was proper full Liam Gallagher, arms behind the back pose. And I said to you, I was like, "What's that for? Like, what is that?" And it literally didn't look like a surfer. It looked more like Liam Gallagher than a surfer. But Bondi Beach, I would love to go back there in their summer, in the winter. But yeah, it was pretty decent. And
then
we went to a burger place on Bondi Beach actually. That was nice. Bondi Beach Burgers or something. That was incredible.
Yeah, it was really good. The food,
it was like a music producer that just down tools and went, balls to this. I'm going to be a burger shop man. So he had like memorabilia from all the bands on the wall. If you're ever in Bondi Beach, Google that because it's worth a visit. We got back sort of a bit knackered from going to the beach, sort of lying on our beds. I think I turned to you, I was like, "George, are we going out tonight?" And you were like, "Yeah, we're going to this nightclub."
You weren't keen. I wanted to go out. Something I like doing when we're out, like when we're in different countries. Like to go to clubs, bars, everything. Just have a good night out, see what it's like in these different countries. And obviously, then it's turned out that a couple people in the room had already got tickets. A couple in the room were thinking, well, they're up for a night out. I was one of those people, definitely up for a night out. A couple of people had got tickets to this place already. I'd heard about this place already, and we were like, you know what? We're doing it. I'm going, and then a couple more were like, okay, yeah. If everyone's going, we'll go. So we got you on board eventually to go out. We got tickets.
So my prerequisite was I didn't really want to go to a nightclub in Australia at all.
But he promises he's not 40.
No. I just didn't see the attraction to an Australian nightclub. I don't see the attraction to nightclubs in Britain, so I'm struggling to see an attraction to them in Australia. But if everyone's doing it, I've got to sort of experience it. I can't slag it off if I haven't done it. So we went there. It was expensive. The beers were expensive, but so to combat that, we drank before we got there, and we drank it was boxed wine. But everyone in Australia calls boxed wine goon, and it's a bit like the Light Here situation on the metro. It's the same. It's like they just randomly have another word for it because they just fancy it. So we were drinking goon out of the cups that we nicked from the kitchen. The kitchen, by the way, where I went to get a fill up my water bottle. That was the first day we got there, and I turned on a tap, and the tap wouldn't turn off. And it became a water feature.
It was not just like on dribbling. It was
just me and you in the kitchen, and it was spraying. And I turned to you, I was like, "George,
what do I do here?"
And I think I just walked away, and I was like, "We're gonna have to just pretend we weren't here." I just left it on.
Okay, someone came over.
Luckily, some geezer was like, "Oh yeah, this happens all the time, mate." So that was good. The nightclub itself. So we get to the night. Oh, just before we got to the nightclub. So during pre-drinks, we had a tennis ball in the room as well. And for lack of our football fix, we decided let's have a rondo.
Yeah, we did.
So we had an eight person rondo in the room with a tennis ball. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was good.
Little coaching session. Coach Parr involved in the mix, getting the team going. Ahead of what was hopefully a good result on the night out, but unfortunately, it's Australia. So we went to the nightclub, and it was predictably like I thought it would be. It was an Australian nightclub. There were a very, very eclectic mix of ages. There were people who were in their 20s, people in their 30s, people in their 40s.
Yeah, it was
probably people in their 50s.
Yeah, it was a mix.
There was one guy who had a few sherbets and decided that he was going to do some dance moves, dancing all around the whole of Sydney, it seemed, in the bar. And he fell into me. I just pushed him back. I was like, mate, like a few expletives. And he decides, I know, I'll punch him. Mate, I took a punch in the kidneys, and I mean, you've never seen me get quite as irate, and I was like, I need you to hold me back, George, because I'm going to spangle him in a minute. And that was like quite predictable. I mean, it was something that I genuinely said to you. I was like, mate, they're Aussies with a few beers down them. There's going to be fighting. And there was. So I mean, you shouldn't really like slag it off when you're expecting it. that was pretty weird though. The whole nightclub just seemed a bit odd. It was like a huge like hall, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like half outdoors, half indoors, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was weird. But then there was a random moment during the night where someone in our group disappeared.
Charlie and Corto, both of them. Yeah,
they disappeared, and they came back and they talked about these wonderful sausage rolls that they had, and they were like, "Oh, they're better than Greg's." And I mean, halfway, through a night out on a few beers, the prospect of a sausage roll was, mouth-watering.
Yeah.
But then I was walking around and I saw people eating these sausage rolls. Could we find one for love nor money? No. And they're like, oh yeah, the big trays. They bring out these big trays.
It wasn't like go over here to find them. It was like they're just walking around.
Big trays of sausage rolls. You could smell sausage rolls. You couldn't see them. Yeah. And these elusive sausage rolls were just nowhere to be seen. Yeah. But imagine that in an English club. Imagine being out halfway through the night and someone, hey, the Greg's delivery's in.
I've been in nightclubs in the UK where they've got hot dog stands. The Prism in Birmingham had a hot dog stand, like a rollover hot dog stand.
Okay.
But yeah, and I've been actually other student. But I guess student nights are a bit different as well. There's toast nights, there's pizza nights and stuff like that where they just hand out pizza and toast. But yeah, it was like sausage rolls.
No sausage rolls. Yeah. That's a game changer. Yeah. If I owned a nightclub in the UK, I'm definitely getting
sausage rolls,
a sausage roll order to Greg's. But yes, so that was that. Sydney was a bit weird. I mean, Sydney just felt to me like it wasn't a very touristy city, even though you've got tourist attractions. It
didn't feel touristy, I would say. I agree with that. Yeah.
It was weird because we were there for like a few days, and whenever we were by the Opera House or by the bridge or whatever, like there weren't that many. Like you go to London, you go to the London Eye, you go to Big Ben, it's swamped with tourists all the time. There wasn't that at all.
I didn't see that.
But no, so that sort of. That was our introduction to Australia. Our level, I didn't really like Sydney that much. It was alright, I'd go back, but it wouldn't be like... I'd go back for the Ashes, I think. I wouldn't have it as like a first choice destination, because it just felt like a bit corporate. It didn't really feel like hitting proper Australia.
Yeah, I think I would go back. I did like it. I feel... It's hard to judge because I judge it a lot on our people we meet, and we met really good people.
Yeah, we
had a really good time.
I agree.
Had the nights for me, I judge it like how good the nights out. I really enjoyed like the bar we went to downstairs with everyone in the room. Enjoyed that.
Yeah.
The club, I didn't mind it. I liked it. It was obviously I know their stories.
I enjoyed the McDonald's afterwards.
Yeah. But again, so I think I would go back. We were only there a few days. I don't think you need to go if you're going on holiday. I don't think you need to go for 2 weeks to do everything. Like I think we did everything we needed to do in the
4 or 5 days is probably enough. But yes, so we left Sydney. Next destination Brisbane. We had a hotel in Brisbane. Where did we go to? Which airport? There is an airport in Brisbane. We go from Sydney to the Gold Coast.
Yes, yeah.
Slight planning error, to be fair, and that was probably a mix of both me and you.
Well, I feel we never planned to go to Brisbane. No. We were meant to go Gold Coast for 4 nights, but obviously
Ryan and Harry had things to say about that.
The Ryan and Harry, we were on the Thailand pod.
Shout out to them both. Hope you're listening. If you're not listening, we'll be having very stern words.
So they were obviously they'd moved to Brisbane, so we were like, well, we'll change and come to see you, but. The flights we'd already booked anyway before we started the trip, before we met them. So we still had the flights into.
So we got into the Gold Coast, and immediately, as soon as we landed in the Gold Coast, we were like, "Oh, we've got another hour and a half travelling."
Straight up to Brisbane from there.
We got on the bus from Gold Coast Airport to like the train station.
Yeah.
The bus driver looked like Santa Claus.
He did. Yeah, that's true.
We got on, and he was like, "Oh, by the way, lads, it's literally you need a card.
Yeah, you can't.
You need a card from in the terminal.
You can't pay. Yeah, you can't pay credit cards. Can't pay the debit card. Can't pay cash. Nothing. Yeah. It's only this special city pass thing. I was like, well, yeah, we don't have one of them, and clearly you're not going to wait for us to go get one from somewhere. And the next bus is I don't know, another hour or something. He was like, yeah, just get on. Yeah,
but he said to us, he was like, yeah, get on. If anyone asks you, just get off. I was like. What? But anyway, so he's driven us to this train station. He told us that he'd give us a shout where the train station was. we got there and it was literally like in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
It couldn't have been more in the middle of nowhere. Like it was to the point where I think I turned to you and I was like, I hope these trains are running. Fortunately, it's Australia, not Britain, so the trains were running that day. And it was another hour on the train from there to Brisbane. Got there, settled into the hotel and straight out where we met Harry and Ryan. And that 3-week period where we were apart was quickly ended and the gang were back together. It was pretty interesting. We recorded the Thailand pod in Brisbane, in the Westin Hotel in Brisbane, but we then got took on a tour of Brisbane. So Harry and Ryan are there working for a little while before they come back to Britain later on in the year. We're going to have them back on the pod because they are good value, and hopefully if you haven't listened to the Thailand pod, it is absolutely worth a listen. It's one of my favourites. But yes, so they took us to a place called Lefties, where a girl called Bridget O'Shaughnessy was performing, and it was actually really, really class.
Yeah,
like, it was a good little live music bar. We got a few beers down our neck, and there was no fighting. So that was a good little introduction to Brisbane. We went to the kebab shop, I think, at the end of that night, and he was literally closing as we walked in, and he was like, "I can do you some snack packs," and I was like, "What the hell's a snack pack?" Yeah, and it's basically kebab meat and chips.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Like, kebab meat and chips, but for some reason it's called a snack pack.
Yeah, and it's that over there, everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah. So I think we had like 3 kebab meat and chips, and not each between us, and then we got off next morning. Walked out of our hotel in Brisbane, and obviously they must have heard that the Couple of Pints podcast was there. There was a protest on outside the hotel. It wasn't looking particularly great when we walked out. I was like, oh, the police are there and all sorts. It was, to be fair, it was a women's rights march. But Brisbane's like quite a liberal city. It's a pretty cool place actually. I quite like Brisbane.
Yeah, I did like it.
We went and had a bit of an explore. We saw the artificial beach that they've created, the artificial swimming pool next to the beach, and we saw like there was an arts centre where Jimmy Carr was there like the day after we left. So they're very in tune with British sort of culture and comedy. I thought it was an interesting place, like Brisbane, in terms of like every bar we went into seemed pretty similar. Like it was all sort of like very dark and like quite dingy.
Yeah, they were. Nah, it's just very true actually. Yeah, they were quite like that. Just very not very bright. Because we went to a few Irish bars as well, to be fair.
Yeah.
In Australia and in Brisbane and Gold Coast
and Thailand and America. And the Philippines.
They've always got the football on, so we know where the good spots are.
Yeah, and like I say, it's with the same culture as there was everywhere else in Australia. They take a photo of your ID, and the best of it was for me as we were walking in the one Irish bar. They took a photo of my ID using an iPad, and then they took a photo of you with the iPad. But the best of it was, like, your face is massive on the iPad, so like anyone that walks past can see your face on the iPad. And I've got a great photo, and I'm sure that Ryan doesn't know this, but I will send it him, of Ryan walking into the Irish bar, and mate, he's smiling. He's like. But like it's pretty weird, like the fact that they don't just trust that you've got ID, they want more to it. We went and we were doing a few beers before we went out. We were going to go and get a few beers from a local supermarket, which was a nightmare. Like, just to find one, yeah. There wasn't like a Tesco or when there was one, there was like a Woolworths. By the way, it's nice to see Woolworths on the street. But we found a Woolworths, and look, they don't serve alcohol. They don't have booze, like a Tesco Metro that doesn't have booze. So it's like we were trying to find alcohol everywhere. The elusive search for alcohol, and we found some in the form of fruit wine in a Chinese supermarket. Yeah. We went to go and pay, and as we went to pay, we were told, "Can't serve you that, mate, not unless you got some food." Yeah, you had to buy food to be able to. And they were like, I said to you, I was like, oh, what are we going to do? Like, we're going to have to get like the cheapest bit of food to do. I said to you, I was like, chewing gum. And he was like, nah, mate, something more substantial than that. I was like, what? So, like, we've had a look through, and we were discussing like croissants and pain au chocolat and like, could we get some breakfast stuff? What did we settle on, George?
We had some Freddo biscuits.
Freddo biscuits.
Chocolate Freddo biscuits, which actually weren't very nice, actually. Either,
pretty awful. I think we had some Mentos as well. Mentos and Freddo biscuits. It was pretty. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like that scene from The Inbetweeners.
This is,
It's the same as Will from The Inbetweeners going, "Hello, I am a man."
I need some.
I need some crisps, like 14 bags of crisps and 2 bottles of Drambuie. But that's pretty much what it felt like just drinking in Australia. It felt like everyone was like, oh, you can't do that. Also, quite weird about Australia. So the first alcohol I always associate with Australia is Foster's. I didn't see a pint of Foster's anywhere. Like,
thank God we don't want to.
I mean, it's pretty awful, but like, again, if Fosters are listening, I mean, I wrote off a brand last week. I'm trying not to write off every brand.
Yeah,
but if Fosters are listening, we are more than happy to help you out with your branding.
What, you think I'm drinking Fosters every episode? I don't think so.
Hey mate, if it works for Ricky Gervais, I'm certain it's not Fosters that he drinks. But besides the point, Fosters wasn't there. It didn't appear. We were done with Brisbane, had a few nights out in Brisbane, we watched the football in Irish Bar, that was good. Yeah. And then we went down to the Gold Coast. We said goodbye to Harry and Ryan, thinking that's the last we're going to see of them, you know, sort of emotional. Yeah. And the two pop up with us at the AFL in the afternoon as we watched the Gold Coast Suns.
Yeah, I think it was
play against Melbourne. Melbourne North.
Yeah, it was North Melbourne.
North Melbourne. Yeah. So we watched a AFL game. AFL is something that, so for me, when I considered going to Australia, like one of the first things that comes to mind is I want to go to an AFL game, and there is a personal reason behind that. So when I was at school, Mr. Mitchell, my PE teacher, hopefully you are listening, Ian. He used to be the GB captain of the AFL team for Great Britain. So we did AFL in PE. So like for most people they don't do AFL. Yeah. So I had an idea what a hand pass was, what the kick was, taking the mark, all that sort of stuff. But I completely forgot. Naturally, like 10 years is a long time. And I think we got there and I was like, how does this work? So I text Mr. Mitchell. I was like, Ian, you're gonna have to help me out here. What's the instructions on AFL? And this is the exact like text that I got back. It was instructions on how to play. Kick it. If you kick it, catch it. If not, smash them. Simples. And pretty much that nailed it.
Yeah, I loved it. It was like a great sport for me in terms of to watch as a spectator. Like it was class.
So I'm not a massive fan of like rugby. I'm not a massive fan of sports that involve oval balls. I mean, I quite like American football, NFL, Minnesota Vikings. Yes, let's go Vikes. But I don't like. I'm not a massive fan of rugby. I'm not like. It's just not my sport. It's not something that I'm interested in. Yeah, AFL I loved. Yeah, absolutely loved. Like the environment was good. The fan bases are pretty cool. Like they've got a little singing section, support section. It's a very interesting game. It's high tempo. It's high scoring. High tempo. It's always moving. But they seriously do clatter each other. Like it's mad. Like because you're quite close at an AFL ground, and you can see exactly how brutal that it actually is. I really, really enjoyed it. One thing I found quite funny was the signals that the officials. Obviously, me and you have refereed football, and we know there are some signals that. They all make sense in football, pretty much. But in AFL, whenever they score a point which is to the right of the posts, or the left of the posts, the main post and the middle, they do the old one thing. Yeah. But if they score a 6-pointer, they do the
double hand.
And they stand there, and there's like a goal line judge that stands behind literally just to do that. Yeah. And then he gets the flags out and waves the flags.
Double flags,
I found, I just like, in a day and age where you just don't need that because like you've got electric scoreboards here, I quite liked having that. It's like being at cricket. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like having an on-field cricket umpire doing these signals. But it was really cool. The Heritage Bank Stadium was cool. Held the Commonwealth Games there in 2018, just before Birmingham held it, which I didn't know until afterwards. But one thing that I really loved was the fact that as we got there were like signs everywhere saying, "Oh, the Macca's McDonald's sponsored play on the pitch at the end."
Yeah.
So with Harry and Ryan, we decided. Well, Harry decided, just out of nowhere, he disappeared and come back with an AFL ball.
Yeah, he went and got a ball.
So at half time, we went onto like a little practice field at the back. I mean, again, imagine that at a football ground, having like a little kickabout out of the way, because there's like a big patch of grass just for you to go and play on.
Yeah.
But it was like, we were sort of getting our eye in on the kicking, missed about 5 minutes the third quarter because of it. And there must have been 150 people.
Yeah, on the pitch after the game.
Yeah.
It was class. Yeah, you could just go on, like, everyone's like waiting on the stairs, and then obviously they blow the final whistle. Everyone, and they got to wait for
the final
everyone to go
whistle.
off.
They sung the anthem, like the club anthem got sung on like a karaoke version. All the screens had. I mean, I think
the words on,
Harry and Ryan were definitely joining in. So, and I've definitely got video evidence of that. So, look forward to that, lads. And then it was just gates open.
Yeah,
crack on.
Yeah. It was maybe like 20, 30 minutes you were allowed on the pitch for.
Yeah, it was ages.
Yeah,
absolutely ages.
After the game, they kept all the lights on, and you could just kick around. Like, but the problem is, like, there is, as you say, there's hundreds of people on the pitch after the game, and like, I think even the best kind of players, when you kick those balls, it's not easy to get them exactly where you want them to go. And some people are going like, all right, they're not just a little circle, they're going, right, I'll stand here, you go about 30, 40 metres over there and I'll kick it over to you. If it's not on target, it's just, there's balls flying everywhere. You're the whole time you're looking, you're coming there, there's one coming this side, there's one bounce over this way. Next thing I'm like, you're trying to chase after one and you're going, right, I'm running this way looking at the ball in the sky, but there's people here, and then next thing you get like clattered someone else, and then balls coming everywhere. Like, it was just chaos for...
Mate, it was, so for me, it was like, it's like when you turn up at a busy park, or like you get to like an AstroTurf, and like there's a bit of like a patch of grass, like, or a patch of the pitch, and there's no one playing on it, and out of nowhere there's like 30 people just like with 16 different balls, all playing a bit of like knocking the ball to each other. It was like that. It was just carnage. No organisation, just like crack on, lads, no problem.
Yeah.
And it was. I mean, what I loved was, I think there was one point where it was either me or Harry, it might have been Ryan actually, and we were like kicking the ball to each other, and one of us has got it horribly wrong, and then the other one's got it horribly wrong.
I love how you knew. It wasn't me.
No, it was me. I mean, we all had our fair share of shit ones, let's be fair. But we've like, you're sort of looking and you're like, oh shit, there's like a family of four there, and like, there's
everyone's going, oh, is it gonna
like
hit
an old woman with her three like grandkids, and you're like,
oh, is it gonna hit the 5-year-old girl that stood right there?
Mate, it was carnage.
Just to the side.
And like you say, as you get a bit more confidence, you sort of step back a little bit more, and before you know it, you're booting this ball 30 yards across the pitch to each other, and you're thinking to yourself, I hope that I don't spangle someone. I don't know if it's in my insurance. I don't know if I'm insured for this. But yeah, it was class. And then just as we were about to clear off, we've had a little go at kicking in between the posts. I've gone from about 45, maybe 35, 45 yards, and cleared the 6-pointers. The best of it was no one recorded it, and the ball went in the stand. So not only did I have the humiliation of no one recording it, which is a humiliation because it was an unbelievable shot, it was the fact that like I had to do the walk of shame.
Now we're all waiting for our
you were waiting for the ball.
Kick the ball into the stand. We got to wait for you to go collect it.
Yeah, that was pretty awful. But again, though, amazing sport, really inclusive sport. I thought as well. AFL. It's not like, I mean, I feel like rugby in the UK, and correct me if I'm speaking out of turn, but I feel like it's quite a closed shop. If you're not brought up in a rugby household, you're not gonna be a rugby fan. Whereas, like with AFL, it was like they were trying to appeal to everyone with families.
Yeah,
that were like I say,
really
old
good. I loved
with
it.
their grandkids.
I said it was our first ever game, and we just straight up picked it up, loved it. Found it really fun. Would 100% go again. Like,
it was amazing, and like I say, we did a bit more. It was good. But yeah, so we did the AFL. then we've obviously got the issue logistically of the fact that Harry now owns an AFL ball, and
had to bring it to the pub.
Had to bring it to the pub. Yeah. So he's bought a ball. We took it to the pub. We went into the Irish bar, obviously, because it's us, and we went to the Gold Coast. Harry and Ryan were still staying in Brisbane. Me and you were staying on the Gold Coast in an apartment which overlooked the sea. It was really pretty, awesome, really incredible. But we've gone into the Irish bar, and the guy in the Irish bar on the door was like, "Yeah, no problem, you can come in." So we've all gone in, played a bit of pool, we've had the chat, had a few beers. They've then decided at 10:10 that their 10 train, which is 20 minutes away, there's a 20-minute Uber away, they need to get to it. So they've cleared off at 10:10. I mean, it was definitely Harry dragging his heels. He was like, no, we'll stay for 10 more minutes. That's how he sounds, something like that. But they've gone, and we've gone. I said to yours, I'm pretty knackered. We've been in the AFL, we've had a few beers all afternoon. I reckon we just call it a night. We're done. So we've gone back to the apartment, and literally as we were walking back, we've had the text which we were all expecting, which was, missed the train, wrong train station on the Uber.
Yeah.
Not only have they missed the train, they'd gone to the wrong place.
Yeah, they were already in a rush, and then come to the wrong train station.
So they've gone, we'll meet you at McDonald's. We'll meet you at the Irish bar on our way back. Yeah. So they've got back, and they've got to the Irish bar, and the same security guard that let them in an hour and 20 minutes earlier, with the ball under his arm, has gone,
no balls.
You're not coming in here with that ball, mate. So he's had that humiliation. We've gone to McDonald's to meet him, and they had no plan, did they? No. There were a couple of stray dogs at that point. There was no plan.
No more trains home after that. Yeah, that's for sure.
No, and it's not easy to get from Gold Coast to Brisbane without public transport. No. It's not a very straightforward place to get to. So, as it was, Harry and Ryan ended up staying in our apartment that night.
Yeah. Got a lot of space for them on the sofa.
Literally had the smallest sofa you've ever seen, and I think we put two of the dining chairs.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So, I mean,
stretch out.
I don't think they had any sleep, but the beds that we had were on wheels.
Yeah.
I've jumped into bed, a couple of twin beds, and I've jumped into bed, and it's gone 4 foot forward, and I turned to yours don't remember this having an engine. So that was, it was just to be honest, that whole apartment seemed like something out of a comedy sketch.
Yeah, it was.
It was outstanding views, but then you're like, what's the catch here? We got into a sauna, which was a DIY sauna there. It was basically a radiator against the wall that you pour water on. Which was ridiculous.
The hot tub that was
hot tub, which was freezing. It was like a hydrotherapy pool. It was icy. And then to top it all off, so the one thing when you're backpacking is that you have to sort of live within your means with regards to your clothes. You have to rewear things quite a bit. So when you get the opportunity of using the washing machine, it's like a gift. From the gods.
Because normally, it's we've been to a few laundromats and stuff like that, and got our stuff done there. Some places, some hostels have laundry rooms, whatever, you can pay to use them or whatever. And then this place, we were like, wow, this has actually we've got a washer and dryer in the
it was incredible.
Room. Yeah, we're like,
absolutely
here we go,
incredible.
This is good.
So
do a full big wash before
we've literally got all of the clothes that we needed washing between us, which was quite a lot.
Yeah.
And we've stuck them all in a big wash. And I can't imagine that washing machine has been used for maybe years. Because the clothes came out of the washing machine dirtier than what they went in.
Yeah, dirty and
dusty.
Dusty, and then soaking wet. So right, we'll soak them, didn't we? In the they had a sink, but it wasn't your normal sink. It was a washing sink or whatever. Soak them in the sink, so made them cleaner again, and then put them in the dryer because now they're even more soaking.
Yeah.
I call it a dryer.
It was a dryer. So you put all your stuff in a dryer, and I put my stuff to dry.
Yeah,
in different in different places around the room. I was putting it to dry. I found a little rack to put them all on. Things just kept falling on the floor. And
I went through the dryer maybe I put it on like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
Every time comes out soaking wet. I'm like, what is that? What? This is just like shaking it around. There's no There's no heat involved. There's no drying involved. There's no air involved. It's just tumbling it around in circles, and every time it just come out wet. And then I had to, do the same and just hang it wherever there was space.
So, I mean, this is one of my favourite stories of the trip, weirdly, and it's funny because like, I hadn't really considered how funny it was until I was thinking back about what happened for this pod, and there was a moment in my life that I will never forget, and that was when the night before we were due to fly to Melbourne, which...
When we say night before, it was like 3 a.m.
We were flying at 6 a.m. in the morning from Melbourne, so we had to leave the Gold Coast apartment at 3 a.m, which is when all the pubs are shutting in the Gold Coast. It's not when anyone's leaving to go anywhere. On Anzac Day, so some of the roads were closed because obviously there's like ceremonies going on at sunrise. And at 1 a.m. on that day, bearing in mind we were leaving at 3 a.m, me and you were sat there like with a hairdryer, which I found, and I was hair drying my clothes dry. Well, not even dry, just damp.
Dry enough.
I was hair drying and damp, so like I wasn't over the weight limit. And there was a moment where we had a conveyor belt.
Yeah, it was like sock here, dry the sock, fold the sock, sock here, dry the sock, fold the sock, and it was just like a full going through.
Pass me them boxes. Other side, mate.
Trying to be as efficient as possible because we're like, right, we need to get to sleep. We got to leave at 3. It's now like 11. We can't pack all our stuff up. We ended up going to bed at, I don't know, like 12:30.
So the best of it was, so we got, so that was our last night in the Gold Coast and Brisbane and Queensland, and we were like, okay, we'll have a few beers with Harry and Ryan early doors. They came back down to the Gold Coast. Great to see you lads. It was really appreciated that was. But we had a few beers with them. Bearing in mind they left our apartment at 8 a.m. that morning and they got back to the Gold Coast for 6 p.m. I'm not really sure that they had anything on that day. They must have been
travelling. Check out and then check back in.
Check out at the hostel and check back in the same place. Hostel, but they've come back after we've done our washing. We've gone and had some food with them and we've had a few beers and a game of pool. It was actually really nice because the way that we met them was how we ended up leaving them. Game of pool, a few beers, an Irish bar. There's just like a big circle. But we've got back to the apartment about 9:30 maybe because they were cautious on their train time. And between 10, I thought hair drying clothes would take me about 20 minutes. 2.5 hours later, we were still there. It was just painful. But we got there in the end. I had a new suitcase after my 3-wheeler didn't sort of go anywhere, and that was done. So yeah, and like I say, that was the Gold Coast. I'm gonna just check that's recording still.
Okay.
What are you checking then?
I was just seeing if I could see the screen was still on.
Yeah, still on. 24% battery, it's fine.
You do. Sometimes you do just like over. Like when I see the time, I'm going, okay, right.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Won't talk about too much. Even that bit, we talked about the clothes drying. Then you just talk another 5 minutes about, they came back, we did this. I was like, it doesn't add loads to the story.
I know.
But added like 3 more minutes or whatever. So
I don't disagree.
But I agree, but then. And we still got Melbourne. I felt Melbourne was like
a lot of it. Yeah. We just have to whiz through Melbourne.
Yeah.
I mean, I reckon we'll cut some of that anyway.
Okay.
So we've then gone from the Gold Coast airport, we're actually pretty close to it this time, and we've gone straight into Melbourne. Landed in Melbourne at like 8:30 in the morning. No time zone change, which was nice. Dropped all our bags off, and then we've gone to explore. So I've got a friend, Lucy. We've got a friend, Lucy, who's currently living there. Tony as well, who I know he's living there as well. So we met with Lucy, had a bit of breakfast, and then we've gone to what any F1 fan would do and seen Albert Park.
Yes, yeah.
So we watched the Australian race in
Thailand, like 2 weeks before.
Co-PP, was it?
Yes, Co-PP, yeah. With the Safi.
Yeah, with the Safi and a Brazilian guy. So hopefully he's listening to the pod. But we've we've gone and watched it there, and it was an amazing race. Like it was actually class.
Yeah, it was,
but like there were things that happened that like were a bit like you can pinpoint it on the track. You can pinpoint what's happened. So we got to Albert Park, and I knew it was a public like park, but I didn't think that all of the hoardings would still be up.
Yeah, this is like, well, it'll be like 4 weeks after the off.
3, I think it was 3 weeks exactly.
Yeah, we were out after, and there was all the hoardings, the grandstands,
still there.
everything was still up, and we're like, this is class. Like, we wanted to go see the track because I know like you could walk around it because it's just a normal road or whatever. But the fact, everything's still up, and it looks like the actual track is still here, and it's like, wow, this is sick. Like, we are on the track. It feels like you're in the track kind of vibe.
So we're walking around the track, and I turned to yours like, there's a Qatar Airways like bit of sponsorship there. That must be the track. And then we've walked down that track, and we've come to the main pit straight.
Yeah.
And like, what an incredible like sort of walk that was. Walking down a road which was virtually empty because it was a bank holiday.
Yeah.
And there's no one working, nothing going on.
Yeah.
And like all of the grid was there.
Yeah.
The finish line. I mean, it was just like, as a sports fan, it's incredible to have that opportunity.
It felt cool. Yeah, it did feel cool.
Obviously, that's where the intro to this pod has come from. But like any true F1 fan, we had to do a lap.
Yes.
We had to do a lap. And I think the fastest lap at Albert Park's around 1 minute and 20 something. We did it on bikes, electric bikes, in 15 minutes something. Which I mean, I'll take it.
We're taking in the sights as well. Yeah,
it was pretty cool because I mean the track actually isn't. So it goes through like a car park, doesn't it? It cuts through a car park, which on the bikes we did. But the best of it was as we were doing the lap, we went past where Pierre Gasly has smashed into the wall. So we had to take a photo of that. What did you think of it? What did you
I thought it was so cool. Like, obviously, I'm a massive F1 fan. Love the F1. We'd watched it a few weeks earlier, and then to be there, be on the track. Like, there's not many places you can go. Like, even like I've been to Singapore when the F1 was on there. Watched the F1 there.
Yeah. And
again, you can walk around, and same like Baku and Monaco. You can walk around the tracks there and whatever. But this had everything was still there, the hoardings, the grandstand, everything. It just felt like you were on the track, and it was so cool to go around the full lap of the track. And then we did it on Strava or whatever, or your Apple map or your Apple Watch maps and whatever. And you look after and just go like that. It's literally the whole track.
The silhouette of the track.
So we did the whole thing. Like it was quite sick.
It was really cool, and like it was just one of them things that is sort of just the timing of it that we happened to be there. It couldn't have worked out any better.
Well, a tiny bit better. If we were there 3 weeks earlier, we were there for the race.
But we wouldn't have had access to the track.
No,
that's the thing. It's like so we were on the track, and the best it was there was no construction workers there because it was a bank holiday.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
and there were people like lining up their crap cars.
And doing
the track,
start,
doing a proper grid start, which I loved. Like
it was good.
Stuff like that's amazing. So that was really cool. We've then sort of gone into Melbourne. There's a lot to talk about in Melbourne. There's a lot of things to do. So I mean, I'm going to sort of whiz through things a little bit because although these are great things to do, and if you are in Melbourne, it's worth doing. I just sort of want to get through it. Do the Shrine of Remembrance. Yeah. It's a really cool place. Like it's a really decent museum, free museum as well. You can donate, but amazing views of Melbourne as well from the top of there. The street art in Melbourne is incredible. There's a number of different streets that have just got like plastered with street art.
Well, graffiti street arts, that kind of
like Banksy style stuff. It's really good. Coffee in an edible cup. So I heard about this phenomenon and I was told about it, and I had to try it. And it was a great coffee, amazing coffee. And they were like, "Oh, you can eat the cup." I must have took 3 bites of the cup, and it tasted like a coaster. Like a cork coaster. It was like biting into cork, and I was like, "There's no way this can be good for you." But they were like, "Oh no, it gets better. The more you eat it, it gets better." I kept eating it like a mug. I got to the bottom of it, and I was like, "Why did I do that?" It was more costly to buy an edible cup.
Yeah, novelty.
And I was like, "What am I doing?" Like it was genuinely one of the worst like things you can eat. It's just a cork, but again, just do it if you get to Melbourne, because it's worth saying saying that you've ate the cup that you drank a coffee out of. bikes and scooters. There's limes everywhere.
Yeah, we used them
that a hell of a lot. I think I did 120 kilometres on lime.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah,
Which
but it's just such a good way of getting about.
Well,
Because you can get about and see the city at the same time. You could get a taxi, you could get a bus, you could get on the train or the metro or something like that. But then, like, you get on there, you just don't see anything. If you go on a bike and whatever, a lot of the time it was quicker as well. Like, if you look at Google Maps, wherever it's saying it's quicker or the same time.
The bike lanes are good as well.
And like, you just get to see loads more, and it's just so worth it. Like, I think it's so much fun and cost effective as well. So why not? Like, but yeah, really enjoyable.
Yeah, the only thing with the limes is they only work in certain areas, as we found out when we went to Brighton Beach. So we went to Brighton Beach, which is famous for the beach huts.
Yes.
Imagine, by the way, imagine being the bloke who owns the Australian flag beach hut.
You can never get in because there's a massive queue.
You would be fuming.
To take a picture with it.
You'd be like, just like all of you, go away.
Excuse me, everyone. I just need to get my surfboard out for this.
There's a big line of 20 people trying to get a photo. But yeah, the limes wouldn't work down there and down towards Mornington. So that was something to be aware of. Again, Australian Music Vault, really cool. What I learnt in there was that, you know, Land Down Under, the popular song, that was written by a Scottish guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that was my big takeaway from the Australian Music Vault. Nothing to do with Australia.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was decent. And then one afternoon we were short of ideas, so we went to the art gallery.
Yes, the NGV, I want to say.
It sounds right.
National Gallery of... No, NGV, I think it was.
National Gallery of Victoria.
Yeah, NGV.
That was it, yeah. There were some really amazing exhibitions in there. There was
some cool ones.
LED light shows.
Yeah, that was that futuristic thing. There was the illusions, optical illusion stuff that was quite cool.
And then, so from...
That's one off.
There was, like, from the amazing to the absolute... The sublime to the ridiculous.
Yeah.
There was, like, any old shite. There was one exhibition where there was... literally some parcels that hadn't been delivered.
Yeah, literally like DHL
there was
parcels.
shopping lists.
Yeah.
There were like paintings where there were just 3 boxes and it says something like "The Unnamed Illusion" by Peter something or other from 1940. And you just like...
Can't believe you've not said the planks of wood one yet. That was one of your favourites.
The one that I loved, that I was coming to it, there was 2 things. There was a branch, just a branch of a tree that was just left there. Like, literally, it had a name under it, but I was like, that's just a branch. And the other one was, there were, like, canvases on the wall, and there were, like, bits of, like, just plywood that had been painted in, like, primary colours. Red, yellow, blues. And I was like, that's not art.
No, there's some things where you go like...
That's just, like, it's like someone's art project from, like, year 9.
But there's some things where you go like, you can really respect some artists and you go like, that looks incredible, like that's very talented, something
amazing.
Like that. And there's some where they're going, you are really just having everyone on by just doing nothing, no effort. No, I don't want to say no effort because I don't know what goes into it.
There's definitely some effort, but like, it's just shite.
It's just like you're thinking, looking at it and going, well, I could do that, but then they come up with this story about what it represents and everything.
Oh mate, so for me, like, they're all aspiring English teachers. They see the word red,
it's like,
and they explore all of the meanings.
What does a red mean in this circumstance?
So it's like, and that was the other one, inflatable Zimmer frames.
So just blown up loads of like blow up. Do you
know what I mean? So they're the sorts of things that you see when like a footballer who's getting on a bit. Is like getting taunted by an away section of fans that get the inflatable Zimmer frames out and throw it at him.
Yeah.
But for some reason, like, that's just art. It's just left on the floor and it's art. The weird one that I thought, so there's 2 things. There was the car wash one, which was just the spinning thing. It's like, so you know, the car wash spinners. There was one of them just like on its own, and that was art. And the other one was the death experience.
Yes.
There was a queue of about an hour and a half.
Yeah, it was,
for you to go into I mean, it's a TikTok. It's a TikTok phenomenon, by the way, but it's just a death experience. Like, I mean, I don't really see the like.
I thought it would be cool. I wanted to do it, but I wasn't going to wait an hour and a half to do it. Like, it was like a VR thing. So you lie down, they put the headset on you, and it's like a interactive experience of
basically what it is. It's like when you watch Casualty and like you get it's just flat lines, and that's all it was. That was effectively like the whole purpose behind it is here's 10 minutes of normal heartbeat followed by a flat line. It's like, all right, cheers. There was a guitar just on the side as well, just one that someone had bought from a shop just on the side, and that was art. Mm-hmm. It was like walking through IKEA.
Oh, I remember,
It was genuine. It was like walking through IKEA, most of it, the art gallery. But it was a good experience. Outside, there were the chairs, the spinning chairs.
Spinning chairs, quite fun.
That was a lot of fun. So yeah, I enjoyed that. You can't not talk about the MCG when you talk about Melbourne. Mm-hmm. I did the stadium tour at the MCG. What a place that is. I mean, as a cricket fan, it's like sort of go to Wembley as a football fan. It's an amazing place to go to. Shane Warne, God rest him, was outside. Really cool to see his statue. As I got there, there was an Indian couple who turned to me and like, "Can you take a quick photo of us with Shane Warne?" And I was like, "That's nice." Mm-hmm. It's just iconic. Brings people around, like from all around the world, just to see the MCG and that sort of stuff. But I had an Aussie guy called Bruce. Obviously, Bruce was my tour guide. Bruce was 84, and the guy, mate, he was like Dennis Lilly running in. He was like running at 100 miles an hour. Like it was madness. He was running around the place. Or say Dennis Lee, you wouldn't get that reference. That's that's like an Australian fast bowler from way back. It was like Jimmy Anderson. Really, there you go. You get that one. But he was running around the shop, and like. He was taking you to all these places, and he couldn't resist it with his little Aussie digs. He was like, "Oh, here you go. I've bought my little Ashes urn. I take this everywhere." And he said, "Do you want to hold it for the English fans? Be nice for an Englishman to hold the Ashes down under." I was like, "All right, Bruce. Well, we were friends." But he made me laugh because we went into the press conference room, and he's like, "Anyone want a photo with the background?" And I just sat there. I was like, "Bruce, this is normally where English cricket captains come to resign, pal." Like, but I got our own back because I said to him, I said, "How long has the MCG been open for?" He was like, 200 years almost. It's an incredible venue. And I said, "What's the biggest attendance that has ever been here? Like, was it a cricket match between England and someone, or you know?" Because I was thinking Australia's biggest sporting venue. You'd think that an Australian would be an Australian team would be the biggest like sort of attendance. Ed Sheeran 3 weeks before. So cheers to that, Ed. You can keep the Ashes, lads. Like, although you're not getting them this summer, they're staying in England. But Ed Sheeran was their biggest and best sort of thing that's ever happened in that venue. George Parr took an English team there in 1863-64. One of the bits of the memorabilia from that. So I'm sure that I must have a long lost uncle somewhere called George. That's George Parr that took the team. So that was pretty cool to see when I was in the long room at the MCG. It was just amazing. But one thing that did get me was when I went and bought the ticket for the MCG, and if you're watching on YouTube you'll see this, they gave me this sweatband which has got all the Aussie colours on. They were like, "Oh, you need to wear the sweatband as you walk around the MCG, you need to wear the sweatband, and then when you get into the Aussie Sports Museum, you use that for the interactive experience stuff." And I was like, I turned to this bloke and I was like, "Mate, do you really think I'm coming here and wearing Australian colours? Like, I weren't born yesterday. I'm not stupid." He was like, "Yeah, I know, that's what we like to do. Try and get the English wearing the Aussie colours, mate." So yeah, they can stick that up their arse. But it's a nice memento for me to keep from the MCG. So yeah, that was, like I say, it was wicked. I loved the MCG. Amazing place. As a cricket fan, just amazing. Karaoke in a booth. We went and did some karaoke.
Continued
finally.
Our tradition of
our
doing
trend.
karaoke in as many countries and places as possible. And
this
one was like, it was like the spin on the Japanese one where we were saying before in the Japan episode where like you get your own room or your own booth and do it. Whereas this was like, they just had one massive room and then these little booths, like the kind of booths you take your passport photo in. It was like that, but a little bit bigger. 4 people sitting there. There was me, you, Lucy, Sophie. 4 people in this one room. Little like TV at the end. The stereo
and a keyboard all in Japanese.
Yeah, and then and then a massive book of all the songs.
Yeah, and the book it's like something from Hogwarts. Like,
it was
huge. The spell book from Hogwarts is massive, like that thick. And it literally had like songs from 100 years ago and songs from last week.
Yeah.
But it was like $10 for 10 songs.
Yeah, it was
pretty reasonable, and it was cool. I mean, it was like, it was something quite surreal about literally being in, like you say, a passport booth.
it was
singing songs. But there were like 10 of these little booths all in one room. It was pretty mad. But yeah, keeping up the Couple of Pints podcast tradition of talking about karaoke on the pod. That was amazing. A-League football as well. We've got to do an honourable mention to Melbourne City FC. They won the conference or whatever it's called in the A-League
or something like
that.
that.
They won the league, and we were there for the trophy lift. There were away fans scattered around the ground. 3-2, it was a classic.
There was home fans scattered around the ground. It wasn't
94th minute winner, Amy Park.
Yeah, there weren't very many fans there. It was not
so
the kind of atmosphere.
I was quite surprised by how little fans were there.
For the trophy lift game as well, it's just very...
Yeah, it was pretty weird. Totally
big stadium,
half empty.
Decent sized stadium. For, like in England, you said that was a good sized stadium.
Well, I mean, you look at Luton and Bournemouth are playing in the Premier League against 10,000 seater stadiums, and Amy Park holds 30,000.
Was it 30? Yeah, it was
25,
like
30.
Yeah, it was like a decent sized stadium. Yeah. There was hardly anyone there. It just felt, just took all the atmosphere away.
Yeah, it did. But again, I mean, one thing that I found weird is like in the ground. So I've been to Brighton, and Brighton are called the Seagulls, and the Seagulls around the ground at Brighton all the time. At Amy Park, there must have been 1,000 seagulls. To the point where they were literally stopping the play. Like, the referee was like trying to stop the play, so you heard seagulls off the pitch.
But it was like people on the front row were taking the mick and just throwing like food onto the pitch, and you see all the seagulls swoop down.
Oh yeah, they did. Like, someone got bored and went, "Yeah, I'm fed up with this hot dog, Bruce. Yeah, throw it over there." And it was like, I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous. But Melbourne was cool. Last thing I want to sort of talk about and mention is Cadbury, for some reason, has obviously chosen Australia as its market to put all of like their best products. You've got caramel with honeycomb. You've got Dream, the white chocolate from way back.
We used to have,
You've got like, I mean, Freddos seem cheap.
Yeah, I suppose they got like different flavoured twirls and stuff as well. We had that one. I didn't really like it, but they had different flavoured things.
Caramel.
Was it caramel?
Yeah, it was a caramel twirl. Look, they've got a lot of experimental like, Cadbury stuff. So I don't know what a Birmingham-based company is playing at, putting all their best products in Australia. But come on, lads, bring it back. One final thing I will say about Australia, and this is the last thing from me, I promise that, is that the perception that I had going there was about spiders and snakes and killer like animals and mammals and things that are going to like, you know, be everywhere. I didn't see a single spider.
No.
I didn't see a single snake.
No.
So anyone that's fearing that, before you go to Australia, because like go to the metropolitan areas and stay in the cities, but just go to Australia. It's a cool place.
It was good, yeah.
My start in Australia wasn't great. I think if you'd have asked me after 3 days, do I want to stay in Australia or like ever come back here, I think the answer was a firm no. It grew on me massively, and I really enjoyed it. Some amazing places to have a few beers. Would you go back?
100%. Yeah. I liked Australia. It was good fun, plenty to do.
People were good. I like the Australians as well. I did like the Australians as it goes. Although I'll taunt them, I did like them.
Yeah, I did enjoy it. Like, especially when we went during their winter. Yeah, I can imagine going during when it was a little bit hot. It was still warm, but like it wasn't super hot. So imagine going in the warmer weather, kind of Bondi Beach in the summer must be nice, and a lot of surfers paradise as well. Like I feel just a lot of that would be good fun in the summer, for sure. So I would go back. Yeah, I would go back.
It was good, and like I say, I'm sure that at some point in the future I'll head back there for the Ashes, maybe the F1, and hopefully we can take the Couple of Pints podcast with us. Yeah. Once again, thank you for listening to us here on the Couple of Pints podcast. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify.
Spotify. We're still on Spotify. And Apple Music, we're there as well. So.
Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok and Twitter, and we will see you very soon. Thanks for listening. We'll speak to you soon.
Perfect. Thank you very much.